Hi, I'm Jason Schenker, Chairman of the Futurist Institute. It is my pleasure today to welcome you to my 2021 South by Southwest online session, 10 Entrepreneurial Opportunities for the Year Ahead. In 2016, I founded the Futurist Institute to help analysts, consultants, and emerging leaders incorporate new and emerging technology risks and trends into their long-term strategic planning and become futurists. In the past year, that means I've been helping a number of clients think about how COVID impacts their business strategy. Now, looking at a time period where we're going to be emerging out of the COVID-19 pandemic, the question is, what opportunities will this create? And these are the 10 opportunities I'm going to talk with you about today. First, we need to talk about, though, the opportunities that have been created in this pandemic period. A number of industries have seen their activity rapidly increase and go parabolic, but many of these industries were not new and have been around for some time. I'm talking about e-commerce, online education, remote work, and telemedicine. These have been around for a long time, but really during COVID-19, we saw a forced adoption and a tremendous leap forward in the activities. In many ways, COVID-19 was an accelerant for these businesses. But there are also other industries that were significant laggards. The economic activity of 2020 and even early 2021 has been very much bifurcated. On the one hand, you have technology-related industries and knowledge businesses, and on the other hand, you have service businesses, hospitality, leisure, retail, restaurants, travel. Those have suffered significantly and continue to suffer, and may for a number of months to come. As we look at the new opportunities of the year ahead, let's consider where we see those. And on the one hand, there are going to be opportunities that are still revolving around those industries that saw such tremendous growth during 2020. But there are also opportunities around those industries that will be going into recovery. And then we see other opportunities as well that are essentially unrelated to COVID-19, but are going to still be impacted by some of the takeaways from that and some of the ongoing tensions we see. First, let's talk about things that I would consider the COVID cleanup. There are a few different opportunities across those areas that boomed. E-commerce, for example. There will be more opportunities. E-commerce is probably never going back down to the levels that we saw in 2019. That means we're going to see continued pressures and demands in this space. It also means that companies that made tremendous investments in 2020 just to get by during a chaotic period will begin to ask questions about the ROI of their investments, and they'll want to know about the ROI of additional future investments. These are questions that companies and executives that I work with are already grappling with and will continue to grapple with in the years ahead. What's the entrepreneurial opportunity here? Well, it's helping corporations understand where the ROI is, helping them evaluate what they're doing and what they could be doing in order to be more efficient in their e-commerce processes. Now, one area where there's a lack of efficiency isn't just on the corporate side, it's on the individual side. We think about digital order origination. We think about all the different apps many of us installed during COVID-19, and now there's a whole host of them. What can we do to make that easier for the users, right? From a UX perspective, what do we want to do to help people be able to maybe just use one interface instead of the many different apps? Or there may also be opportunities in helping people identify and rate what things work better in their own individual situations. In other words, now that people have so many e-commerce opportunities, and there will be more different ways to access e-commerce in the future, they're probably going to want to make better decisions about it. Helping individuals make those decisions in the same way you might help corporations make better investment decisions are going to present opportunities. I suspect we're going to see different companies emerge that try to do this, and some will do it quite effectively and successfully. Additionally, telemedicine. That's an area we saw take off during the COVID-19 pandemic and will remain a part of healthcare for many individuals for a very long time to come. For many, it will be a permanent fixture of the way they approach healthcare. But we're likely to see here significant competition and also streamlining activities. That's where we're going to see, just like in e-commerce, all the stuff was done, everything moved forward very quickly, and now we need to go in and kind of clean up and make sure that everything is optimized and everything is efficient. Now, that's not something that that individual companies might do on their own or individual users might do on their own, but this is where an enterprise type B2B offering might be helpful. And there might be also B2C offerings here as well, helping to streamline how telemedicine operates and also potentially fostering more competition in the space for individual benefits. One area where we're also going to see more activity somewhat related to this is remote work. If we think about the proliferation and needs of remote communication during the COVID-19 pandemic, they all went up, right? Messaging, communication, even right now, there's people I communicate with on WhatsApp and others on Slack, and some use Teams and others use Zoom, and then there's texting and calling and emails and so on and so on and so on. And we're going to see, I suspect, a potential further proliferation of more different ways that people interact. And for people in businesses, this isn't sustainable to have more and more and more and more and more, many different myriad ways that we're communicating. That makes things very difficult. This means there's a big opportunity in helping to streamline how individuals receive the information from the myriad apps that they're accessing. There's a lot of different ways they're receiving contact from people they work with or family or friends. And it might be online messengers or emails or all of the different apps they're using on their phone. And really, it would be a lot easier if everything kind of came through one specific channel in order to help with the filtering. I think we're going to see companies make moves towards this. We've already seen some potential moves towards these kinds of integrations. Salesforce, for example, has taken steps in this direction. But I think you're going to see a lot more potentially designed, not just from a CRM standpoint or an end-to-end sort of customer service type orientation in a B2B world, but I think individuals are going to want an easier way to filter through all the different ways that people are either contacting them or trying to come into contact with them. Additionally, we look at content marketing. That's really ramped up. A lot of different companies created a lot of content in the past year. Folks stuck at home created a lot of online courses, wrote a lot of books. I know I'm guilty of both of those. And there's a lot of content out there. And proliferation across platforms is something that companies are now doing. And of course, there are different apps that help integrate that. But I think there's also going to be, in the year ahead, questions around ROI, a focus on trying to streamline how companies interact across apps, how they're getting their message out to people. And for now, there are different ways to integrate it, but they still seem a bit clunky. And I think there's going to be some significant pushes in how to streamline the way content is repurposed. Because right now, a lot of content repurposing, you take content and then you slice it and dice it yourself, and then you have to put it or have your team put it in a lot of different places and a lot of different channels. And there are ways to make this a bit more streamlined, but I think there's opportunities to make it even cleaner. And I think there will be a demand for this that increases in the next 12 months because so many people have been focused on generating content. Now's the time to do a bit of harvesting. Again, thinking about that kind of COVID cleanup, right? We've done all the tasks, the big things. We've taken the leaps forward, and now it's time to shore up our positions. I think there's entrepreneurial opportunities there. Also, remote education. That took a big leap forward during COVID-19. I pursued a master's degree online, completed one between 2014, 2016. My wife's doing a master's degree, an MBA right now online. Online education is going to increase, but there are going to be challenges, and these really are around cost. And I think you're going to see downward pressure on an industry that previously has been a guild and hasn't focused very much on ROI and cost effectiveness and cost benefit analysis. And all of advanced education is probably going to push this way. I think you're also going to see a further proliferation in substitutions. So the ability to do more certificates, you're already seeing this from LinkedIn Learning, for example, with learning paths, and low-cost options. There are several apps out there. There are several companies out there that are rolling out online courses, allowing you to get college credit at a fraction of the cost. You're going to see more of this. This is a big step forward because during the COVID-19 pandemic, whether you were employed or unemployed was highly dependent on your education level. And whether you can work remote or not is also highly dependent on your education level. If you have an advanced degree, for example, then chances are in January of 2021, you worked remotely. Why? U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that a majority of people with advanced degrees worked remotely at some point in January 2021. But if you don't have a high school diploma, it was less than 3%. This is a very big difference. Education is a huge differentiator of opportunity, not just for income or employment, but also working remotely. There's some recent research from Pew. Pew Research has a number of different reports out about how people are rethinking their careers in light of unemployment. 66% of people who've lost their jobs are rethinking their careers. And if you look at what jobs are lost, it's a very heavily skewed towards lower income jobs. That's where the vast majority of jobs have been lost. And the education gap there is critical. This is going to be something that has to be closed. And I know there's a lot of discussion around debt forgiveness for education or free education. But I think you're going to see, even as those debates rage, that's not going to be easily solved. What you're going to see on the private sector side are further solutions of lower cost degrees, lower cost college credit, lower cost alternatives to degrees. And you're already seeing this with proliferations of various certificates and online programs. But I think you're going to see cost disintermediation. No, there are a few opportunities here. There's one to be involved in the creation of remote education. Another would be to help identify and rank cost disintermediation opportunities and otherwise help people increase access or identify substitutes and different ways, different things that can be substitutions for degrees or more formal education. So all of those things are going to be part of that push forward. So again, to reiterate, the COVID cleanup, e-commerce, telemedicine, content marketing, remote work, remote education, all of those things have a lot to do with streamlining all these leaps forward and trying to capture the value for individuals who now have many different ways they're communicating with their coworkers that might be in some ways overwhelming, or remote education, trying to help with those cost pieces, or with e-commerce, helping companies or helping consumers. Again, streamlining, making things easier. That's going to be, I think, all of those will be areas where we see opportunities, and those are those themes: efficiency, integration, streamlining. Now, beyond those, we see additional opportunities in the COVID laggards, right? Those industries where we saw problems and challenges. I think about the service industry, hospitality. For example, right now there's a debate around the $15 per hour minimum wage nationally in the United States. This could happen for many industries, especially these lower wage industries in hospitality, industries that have suffered greatly during COVID. Those kinds of additional costs of wages could present business challenges. They could even be going concern issues where those businesses would cease to operate. So what's the entrepreneurial opportunity? Well, helping those businesses bridge the gap. And one of the ways to do that is with automation. I think we're going to see a lot more automation in the next 12 months in the hospitality space, in restaurants, in retail, travel, tourism. Kioscification is likely to accelerate, and a lot of that will be for two benefits. One, to help companies operate in the face of potentially higher labor costs. And two, to present an operating environment that is a bit more contactless. Yes, you might have to touch a screen, but no, you're not interacting with a person at close distance. Those are two big areas. And of course, there's even a third, which is, since we know 66% of folks are considering different careers based on their COVID-19 experience, the question is, will all those people still be there for those industries when they ramp up? When hospitality, tourism, travel, when the numbers finally return back to what they were in 2019, something that might not happen until 2022 or later. But again, this is kind of the next 12-month window, right, where we're going to begin to see big shifts forward in hospitality, tourism, travel, leisure, as we see vaccinations at scale accelerate. How are these companies going to operate if they can't get their people fast enough? If suddenly the demand surges and the people aren't there, or the people switch professions, or the companies don't have the money to pay the people, even though suddenly they have the business, these are challenges, and that's where there's an opportunity. Right? At the end of the day, the term entrepreneur, right, comes from the French, which preneur is a person who takes, from the verb prendre, and entre, it means between, right? So it's the person who takes the in-between thing. And so helping companies and individuals find things they want, you fix a gap, and this is a gap that's going to exist. Another gap that's even more critical as a COVID laggard factor is this labor market efficiency problem, somewhat related to what we're likely to see in hospitality, where we might see some industries continue to grow and yet they don't have people. There are a number of industries that have been very strong recently. Manufacturing, a lot of those industries really had significant strength in 2020. They're strong now in 2021, and they're likely to continue to grow. Same thing's true in supply chain industries, which are in many ways the back end, or what you don't see as the part of the supply chain, right? You might see someone deliver stuff to your house, but there's a lot of people running equipment and warehouses and distribution centers, right? There's a gap there, still need for more people there. And of course, there's the labor market inefficiencies around education, where there's a need for a lot more people with a lot more education, and a lot of the people who are unemployed don't have that. So how do you bridge those efficiency gaps? And I think there's going to be a lot of room in ed tech for that in the next 12 months. And not just in ed tech, but also in HR, right? Helping companies find ways to bridge those gaps. Something I've talked to some of my clients about is the notion, if you need people and you can't hire them right now, find ways to help line up those people so they can have a later start date. If they need education and skills they don't have, but they want to work for you, help them get that before they start. There's a lot of different ways that these gaps can be filled. But the truth is that entrepreneurs have to come in and help companies bridge those gaps. And individuals as well, right? If you're an individual and you're unemployed and there's an education gap, right, there might be more opportunities around that as well. Some of that's with part of that COVID cleanup concept, right, with remote education and finding ways to disintermediate or assist learners. But I think there's also an opportunity in the HR world to improve the efficiencies, because the unemployment differences between folks with advanced degrees or even bachelor's degree versus folks who don't have a high school diploma or don't have any college is a massive gap. And that gap will remain wide for some time going forward, because the COVID recovery is, as we've already seen, not an overnight phenomenon. And the most recent jobs data as of this recording, which is in mid-February, the most recent data that's available shows there are over 20 million Americans collecting some level of unemployment benefit. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of human capital. And bridging that gap with companies that need people now or will soon could be tremendously valuable for those individuals, for those companies, and for the entrepreneurs that help solve the problem. There are a couple other areas beyond the laggards and the cleanup that I see. Policy-driven opportunities, there's a couple there. First is defense. There are continued increases being made in various technologies, and the need for dual use technologies is accelerating as well to bring consumer tech into the defense world. And it can be completely mundane stuff, like the same automation and kioscification that we expect to see in the hospitality industry. You could use more of that in the defense world and free up some of what defense people call the tail to support the tooth in other ways, right? There's two kinds of defense folks. The folks kind of on the front line is the tooth, and all the folks that support them are the tail. And with a labor market that in the next 12 to 24 months is going to become much more competitive with people with high skills, you're going to want to have automated solutions in every industry, including in defense. But there are lots of other ways that dual use technologies, consumer tech that helps the defense industry, that's going to become even more important. Additionally, I think we're going to see policy-driven opportunities in sustainability and renewables. We already know that these are critical cornerstones of the energy policies and the climate policies of the Biden administration. Sustainability also got a lot of visibility during the COVID-19 pandemic as so many people were working remotely. And if you're working at home and not going to an office, you're also not driving, you're not burning fossil fuels, you're not consuming at the office. You don't have two different places that you're occupying during the day in which you exist only in one, right? So there are also going to be big pushes there, not just from a policy-driven opportunity, but I think we're also going to see that at the corporate level. We've been seeing ESG and activist investor initiatives increasing for a number of years and continuing to push on helping companies demonstrate sustainability, showing how they are sustainable, communicating their sustainability, and showing how they're actively involved with renewables and climate change, demonstrating, conveying, communicating, tracking, auditing. All of those things will be big in the next 12 months and for many years beyond. And those are all entrepreneurial opportunities. Helping companies do those things, helping investors track those things, that could all present opportunity for entrepreneurs in the year ahead. Sustainability is not going away. Renewables are not going away as well. Finally, the last category I want to talk about is a new horizon category, which the prime example I can think of is quantum computing, which has been making some significant strides recently. And I want you to think for a second that there is quantum computing, the technology, which for almost all people is not something that you can actively be involved with developing and pushing forward. But that's true of most technologies, right? Semiconductors, 5G, robots, automation. These are things that most people, most entrepreneurs aren't going to be able to get near. That's really something for very highly qualified, trained, experienced scientists doing a very specific thing. But there's also an entire field that supports the industries of technology. So if I think about quantum computing, what's missing is an entire field around it. A lot more conferences, a lot more education, a lot more communication, a lot more training, all of the different softwares that are coming, capital formation around it. There are a lot more things coming to this field and many other emerging technology fields. This is something we're going to see for not just quantum, but for other new horizon technologies, the build out of the fields around the core technology to create those ecosystems of awareness. There are entrepreneurial opportunities there that will be significant in the next 12 months and that will also potentially have very long-lived impacts. And for many folks looking at these spaces, wondering what they can do, probably the best thing you can do is begin to take the steps forward now, because there's definitely going to be a benefit for the people who take a lead in helping to create those ecosystems. So those are the 10 entrepreneurial opportunities for the year ahead. We've got here 5 under that COVID cleanup: the e-commerce, telemedicine, content marketing, remote work, remote education, efficiency, integration, streamlining, the COVID laggards, the service industry, helping them move forward, contactless tech, as well as labor market efficiencies. And labor market efficiency in general, helping to bridge that gap of how many people are unemployed and how that mismatches with what's going to be needed in the next 12 months and beyond. And then, of course, there are the policy-driven opportunities in defense. We're looking at dual-use tech, sustainabilities, and renewables as well. And finally, New Horizon technology and the ecosystem around them. Thank you again for attending this talk, my 2021 South by Southwest online talk about 10 entrepreneurial opportunities for the year ahead. I'm Jason Schenker, the chairman of the Futurist Institute, and it's been my pleasure to speak to you today.